to
I wasn't prepared for this.
We come to you from the Jet Center and are proud Conroe ISD educators who understand the reality of serving in public education. We hope to bring you perspective from the field by tapping into the thoughts of students, teachers, administrators, and community members. It will be a fun and thought-provoking discussion. Today we are happy to have Miss Melissa Reagan. She is a counselor with a broad set of experience. She has been a counselor at BB Rice, a K-6 school, Stewart, and is now at Peak Junior High. Welcome, Miss Reagan.
Thank you. I'm so glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you.
Cool. Well, here we are, and you're a counselor, right? So
Yes.
we've noticed, that mental health awareness is definitely a trend in the last, I would say probably decade. And that's a positive thing, we're getting to know our students better through this and ourselves better, I would say. And so one of the big things, obviously, within counseling is trauma. And it's a serious subject. And so if you could give us a broad or specific definition, how would you define trauma?
Yeah, so trauma is definitely an emotional response that we have to a big event, right? An event that causes us a lot of stress or fear. So something that really disrupts our sense of like safety and how we respond to that is trauma. So
Okay. Yeah, that definitely gives us a starting point. And so in that, we're curious, what do you see most often? Which is, again, a broad question.
Yeah,
But what do you see most often?
I think that my experience as a counselor has, from elementary now to junior high, I think that I've seen a lot of different varieties of responses. We see it so much in the littles with the elementary students. That fear takes over for them, and then you start to see like lots of clingy kind of behavior, that separation anxiety, maybe from a trusted parent or a teacher that they feel really connected to. Also, just that overwhelming sense of this could happen again, and needing that reassurance of you're in a safe place, and so just providing that for them. School it's hard to concentrate, right? And so if you think about kind of those basic needs that our kids are looking for, they need to feel safe and secure first. And so really providing that for them. I think in our adolescence and as our kids get older, I think we start to see it in more of a way of their moods are shifting a little bit more, maybe become a little more withdrawn or some bigger emotions there. They may want to talk about it a lot, and where that could be uncomfortable to some, but just providing, again, that safe space for them to have that. But knowing that, I think being aware that there are mood shifts in whether they're little or they're bigger, and being open to kind of diving into that a little bit more is what's really important. So.
Well, yeah, that's really great. You gave us a comprehensive view, I would say. And I like that you said a variety of responses, because overall there's essentially the same events that can happen. Yeah. But every human is different, and how they respond I think is where our jobs become so unique and rewarding ultimately, because we get to provide for the individual. And so the next question would be, how does it present itself? Which I feel you answered to some extent, but if you'd like to expound, how would you say that trauma presents itself?
I do feel like, yes, I've kind of shared a few examples, but I think that in education, what we're looking at is seeing a student does not always, if they're not expressing it or with the right words even, right? Because a younger student may not be able to say, this is what I'm afraid of and this is what I'm experiencing. So they may have bigger emotions, right? You may see behavior issues kind of come out too, right? And then not unexplained behaviors that are just happening all of a sudden. But same thing with our older students too. risky behaviors come into play. And so where things start changing for them, where they've always been kind of down this path and now something is steering them another way, what is that that has caused that? And so I think it's just being open-minded to changes in our students, which can be challenging for teachers if it's early in the year. You don't know that student long term yet. But just being aware of them each and every day. And that's where I think that counselors can come into play, really, is because we sometimes, in elementaries, you're with them a little longer. In junior high and intermediates, it's, just a couple of years, but having those relationships with the kids and knowing their past and communicating school to school can be helpful too. That whenever something happens, hey, have you seen this before? Or I know this kid, this is not like them. Or yes, this is caused by X, Y, and Z. So.
Yeah, I like that you have the perspective of having been at different campus grade levels and being able to see those various patterns that develop. I know for me personally, having worked in intermediate, when I start to get to the high school and see some students that I knew in intermediate, I get a little bit sad because I realize that they're in a different stage, and if trauma is presenting itself differently at that point, I have to readjust, even though I'm still holding on to my nostalgic elementary version of them. And respect the human that they're developing into. So I really appreciate being able to see the patterns. And this next question, I feel like I have to pre-answer that the answer is no. But the question is it always the same?
No.
So what similarities, though, do you see that it's like, okay, I recognize this, I've dealt with this with another student before, and it's not going to be exactly the same, obviously, but how can I draw from that information kind of thing?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is not always the same, and everybody's response is different, but I do think that you start to notice a few patterns in the sense of, I think recognizing too by age to see what is common for that age when you're looking at trauma, but the patterns of their social cues, what they're doing with their peers, what they're doing, how they're responding to adults, how their academics are happening, and just really kind of, I think, recognizing those changes if they are happening, I think that everything that we do in counseling and even as educators is we learn as we go. And so as we experience things with students, and so we take those experiences and we continue them and we can grow from them and know what worked and what didn't work, and so use those skills as teachers and as counselors. So I think just knowing some of those social cues and being able to pick up on those.
Absolutely.
So I have some follow-up questions. I'm in deep thought over here, just really thinking through some things. So whenever we look at, I'm like a trauma novice. My understanding and full picture, journey and understanding trauma, I'm very early on in my development. So here's some questions. So is there like a barometer or a difference between what we could label or what we could say is trauma or what we can say is anxiety or just daily stress? Like, what's the difference?
Oh, that's a really good question. So I think that the difference would be is if there has been a specific event that could have happened, either a one-time event or like a long-term ongoing thing, right? So if we know that a student has experienced a sudden traumatic death, right? A death of it doesn't even have to be traumatic. It could just be a death of a close relative or a pet or something that has caused distress for them. If you know that has happened recently, then that may be more of the reaction to that event. Or if you know, unfortunately, if somebody is experiencing long-term some kind of abuse, or that there's a speculation of abuse or neglect or anything of that nature, then you can start to kind of predetermine, is that related to those events? And related to anxiety and stress, which are huge things today that our
Right.
students are faced with.
Right.
Anxiety has grown so much amongst our youth and even adults,
Right.
you know, just in general, just with our daily interactions. And so I think kind of trying to go back to trauma is specific to an event
Okay.
versus just maybe handling day-to-day activities,
Okay.
you know, and just the stressors that come into play.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think that would be my
So there's
way.
like, in my mind, I think everybody faces anxiety and stress at some point.
Yes.
And it's healthy. It's part of
It is.
feelings. It's going to happen.
Yes.
We learn to cope with those things because we experience them.
Absolutely.
It's normal, right?
It's normal.
But the pattern you're talking about of changes in behavior related to an event of some kind, that's not normal.
Right.
And for
Yes.
everybody and every day.
Yes.
Is that what you mean?
Yes.
So then my next question would be, is it important to be able to label trauma, or is the way that we would go about supporting people who are experiencing that vastly different than how we would support a student or a person who is extremely stressed?
Right. No, I mean, I think that you handle them the same way, you know, and we're looking at the whole child.
Right.
And so we are handling that where they are at that time. And so, you know, for us, we don't need to diagnose anything, right?
Right,
Or
right.
label anything.
Right.
Because
Because that's making a huge assumption.
It is a
Okay.
huge assumption. And so, as a teacher or as a counselor or anybody working with students, just going in and doing what we do best.
Right.
You know, building those relationships with the kids
Okay.
and meeting them where they are. It's the best.
Okay. Well, have you seen trauma itself or the awareness of trauma? Do you think that trauma is people are experiencing trauma more often, more and more throughout the years, or is it that our awareness is increasing?
I think our awareness is
Okay.
increasing, yes. I think that, you know, everybody at some point has experienced something that has been life-changing, you know, and what we would probably consider traumatic, no matter what our response was, whether we got through it or not. But I think that we just, as a generation, society, that we are more aware of it. Mental health has grown so
Right.
much. And so it's not something that is not talked about.
Okay.
You know, that we are talking about
Yeah.
feelings and emotions so much more now, that I think that that's where the awareness is coming in.
Okay.
So we can assume that at some point in our lives, everybody has experienced trauma.
Most people have experienced something, and it could be as simple as a beloved pet passing
Absolutely.
away, you know, a death of some sort, or experiencing a hurricane or some kind of natural disaster or a wreck even, you know. We think about big things being
Right.
traumatic, but it doesn't have to be something significantly big. It's just the way that's significantly big to us
How it impacts
personally.
us. It's the
Yes.
impact that matters.
Yes.
Because two people could be in the same wreck. One could walk away just like, oh, well, that
Yes.
really sucked, but it's just another day.
Yes.
And the other one has great side
They
effects,
saw
I
life
guess.
flash before their
Absolutely.
eyes. They're
Yes.
changed.
Yes.
Their behavior's
Yes,
changed as a result.
absolutely.
It could even be something as small as a kiddo seeing two kids arguing and one hit the other for the first time and they're
Yes.
like, what, we hit each other?
Yes.
Wait,
I didn't know
Exactly.
humans did that.
Or
Yes.
going to somebody else's household and watching two.
Oh, yeah,
people
the first
argue.
sleepover.
Yes.
Because maybe in their
Yes.
house, that's not
That's
something
not normal.
that is normal.
Yes.
One of the things that I really love that you said is we don't have to know what their trauma is.
Right. And,
Yes.
and you
We
also
can
said we
just-
don't label it.
No,
Yes.
because we
Yes.
should, in a perfect world, treat people as if we're not caring for you because something has happened to you.
Yes.
We care for you because you're a human.
Yes,
And
absolutely.
we treat them as what happened to you rather than, like, how can I help you? How can I love you better? Because we all know that something has happened to us.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah.
I really
So
like that.
when we talk about trauma-informed practices in schools, it's not like we pull out our trauma-informed toolkit
Let's look
Yeah.
when we think we found a kid who might have trauma. It's
Here,
something
come
we
with
do.
us. Pull out the
Right,
toolkit
like,
now.
oh,
Yes.
time to pull that toolkit off the shelf. I think
Yeah.
this kid has trauma. Like, it's something we practice as
Yes.
part of best practices.
Yes.
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, how has the increased awareness around trauma over the years of you being a school counselor? How has it changed counseling, or has it?
Yeah. To be honest, I don't feel like it's changed counseling so much, in the sense that that's kind of who we are.
That's kind of the reason counselors have always been counselors in the first place.
Yes. But I do think what has been a positive change is that there is an excitement of others to learn those the skills that we have, to be able to share those with people who are interested in helping with that within the classroom setting too. So I think that's probably been the biggest change that I have seen in my 16 years as a counselor. Just 16 years ago, looking back to when it started, or when I started, and thinking about today, I think that the practices that we have in our schools with focusing on building those safe classroom environments and teachers being wanting to help and wanting to be kind of that first line of defense, and then when it gets to be more than what, in the classroom setting, then that's where we come into play, as counselors. So I love that today that teachers and educators and everybody, I think, is just more aware of it and willing to implement some of those basic things.
Well,
basic
the saying,
skills.
when you know better, you do better. And we're learning more and more, and we want to do more and more.
Yes,
right?
yes.
So along that route, what tips might you have to help teachers support students? Not students with trauma, just students.
Yeah.
Because it's the best practice.
Maybe to prevent trauma from happening in the classroom.
Yes, yeah. I mean, first and foremost for me, I'm a relationship person. So I think building strong relationships with your kids is one of the most important things to do. Finding some kind of connection to them, so that way if they are ever in a scenario where they are feeling worried or scared, they have you. You're their first person that they see. So building those relationships, setting good structures in your classroom. One of the things that come from anxiety and stress is feeling out of control, right? And so when you know that what to expect in your day, you know what's happening, you know that you have clear set guidelines in this teacher's room, then that helps you perform. And so I think that teachers being able to provide that is really helpful. And then I think just allowing them the space to do what they need to do. So if today seems to be a hard day, and you know that they have experienced trauma, or that they are going through something that is outside of their norm, maybe giving them freely some time, space to talk about it, or to draw about it if they're little, or whatever it is that they need to work through it. So
creating felt safety in the classroom.
Yes.
Okay. And you talked about structures, routines. I just wanted to reiterate that.
Oh, yeah.
How important that is.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So what tips might you have for teachers to support themselves as being, we're in the service industry and we're giving so much, but part of being in a relationship is it goes both ways.
Yes.
We offer some of ourselves, and then we have to think of how do we fill the spaces of what we're giving out all of the time. There's an emotional burden that comes with it. Can you talk about some of that?
Yes. As a natural person that has a lot of feelings, and I agree. I think that educators are in this field because they want to help, and they have the mindset of making a difference for others. And so I think knowing when you have gotten to the point that it's beyond you, that making sure that you reach out to people who have experience and or are the experts in that, I think as far as counseling, what we try to do is we try to give our staff tools that they can use within the classroom with students, but then also saying, but we're here for you too. You don't have to be that person to everybody. Even as counselors, we get emotional fatigue sometimes too, because we take on a lot and we don't let go of it, and so I think it's important that they know, one, that we're there to support any way that we can. Two, giving them tools to be able to utilize in the classroom. So if they want to help in those scenarios that they can help. But then also just giving them space to talk about it, and debrief also.
Right.
Because it may be the first time for them too. And if they're experiencing, say, something and they're having difficulty and the student is behaviorally or in some way and they're at a loss, well, then I think reaching out to you guys, right? Because that's your tool belt. Sorry. That's your expertise, and knowing ways to also help with that. So we have a wealth of knowledge in our district. And so I think with each of individual and department, just being able to work together has made it why it is so good.
And that's why people say it takes a village. And
Yes.
it's not because the load
no
has
one
to be
person.
dispersed, right? It's because some of the situations that humans experience are so complicated, and it shouldn't be placed on one person to be a support person. That's almost
Right.
impossible, and it's
Right.
limiting unnecessarily.
Yeah.
Why be the only person?
Yes. Yeah.
And remind yourself that you too are part of that village, and you need
Yes.
another
You need to
village
reach
You
out
need a
to
village
to
too.
fill your
Yes.
own cup and make sure
Yes.
that you're taking care of yourself emotionally as well.
Absolutely.
So whenever we talk about support and we talk about the village and reaching out and, asking for help, I think of when people see someone struggling and they ask, how can I help? Sometimes people don't know how to answer that question.
Yeah.
So what would you suggest if you don't know how to ask for help, but you need help, and you're a teacher who's supporting a student in a tough situation and they need more help, but you're not sure how? What would those people do?
Yeah.
How do you get the village started?
Yes, that's a great question, because you're right. I think that we feel like we have to have the answers, and that I should know, so I'm not going to ask for help. I'll figure this out.
I feel like I have to call a meeting and say,
Yes.
I need this and this and this from you and you and you.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I can see you doing that.
Yeah.
I'm asking for my personal reason.
Yeah.
And assign roles to your
Right.
village. I totally see that.
I have an agenda.
I think the best way is just to continuously, validate our teachers and saying it's okay. That's why we're here. And just continuously doing check-ins with our staff, whatever that may look like on each individual campus. I know the larger the campus is, right? High schools have lots of people, and some, I'm sure they all have their own kind of functioning ways that they check in, and so checking in with our staff definitely, and just providing those opportunities. I think that something that we like to do from time to time is do small little cookies with the counselor, and so opportunities for people just to come in and just to kind of talk. And so I think you find out more when you're not asking about something specifically. It's almost when more comes up, and then you're listening to, oh, hey, I heard them talk about that. I need to check in on this. So being afraid to ask for help is not abnormal, right? I think we all are that way, but just providing the opportunity multiple ways, and again, for us, building the relationship with them, so that way, like the kids, they trust the adult. Our staff will trust us as counselors or administrators.
And you mentioned something important, which is consistency. When you're daily showing up and you see them in their various states, you're more likely to tune in to when you think they might actually be needing help and they're not speaking up about it.
Yes.
Because you're going and checking on your people.
Yes. Yes.
Maintaining your relationship.
Yes.
Okay. So, any last thoughts before we try our drop of joys? Are we in a place for that?
Yeah, I'm feeling joyful.
Okay.
Yay.
So we do a thing at the end of every episode where we share our drop of joy.
Okay.
And since we're coming off of that conversation, what if in our drop of joy we have a theme, which is what keeps you going?
Okay.
Something joyful that keeps you going. Okay, who wants to share first?
Well, I've got one prepared, and your theme fits mine.
Okay, perfect.
Or I'll
Okay,
make
good.
it fit. Last night, I went to Gordon Reed's fourth grade play with my mom, who's doing Project Mentor, and she has a mentee. And I knew 4 of the students in the play from various sectors of my life. And so it was just one of those very self-actualizing. I was at the top of Maslow's hierarchy, and I was I feel so satisfied, and my cup feels full. So that's my drop of joy.
That's sweet. It goes kind of along with mine, which is not a specific moment like that. But I think in the times when I'm feeling the worst, which most anxiety, most detached from where I want to be, the thing that pulls me back every time is a connection with someone. Even if it's we're both washing our hands in the bathroom and we talk and just have a moment of eye contact and we tell each other something funny and we walk away. Every single time, that's what pulls me out.
Yes.
So, connection.
Yeah. So mine is very much the same. That's what immediately whenever kind of crosses both of y'all. So being at Pete, I've had the privilege of working with some of our students who have gone through Stewart all the way through and now with me in junior high. And so I'm a hugger, just by nature. That is, I won't come in, I'm going to hug you. And so I love that connection with students or staff, and just to say hey, they see you, they're happy, and they know you, and just kind of having that relationship, for so long. So I love that. That's what kids keep me going, for sure.
That's awesome.
I think for me, the word village, because I think as I get older, the importance of who the people that I have around me.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was surprised we didn't have this happen this whole episode.
Yeah, the people that I have around me is something that not only am I grateful, but I'm proud to have around me. Yeah. And welcoming new little village members, and I really am blessed with the people around me. That's what keeps me going.
Wow.
I love that.
I love that too.
Yes.
So connection. All of us spoke to that, and I think it's perfect for the human experience.
In our perspective.
Yeah, in our perspective.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I know
you.
you've taken time away from,
you.
10,000 things that you have to do,
No,
but
I
it
love
means
it.
a lot to us when we have special guests come and
Thank
give
you
their
so
perspective
much.
outside of our own. So thank you for being here.
It was
Ms.
nice
Reagan.
meeting you, and I
Nice meeting
appreciate
you
your
too.
wisdom.
Likewise.
Thank you so much. It's been joyful.
Well, that does bring us to the end of our episode. So for those out there listening, if you haven't listened to our previous episodes, be sure to check them out. And remember, if you ever have an idea or a question about something we said, feel free to reach out to us, your student support service coaches. See you next time.
See you next time.